Hi, this is the fellow passenger. Today I'm speaking to Ned Rush. Again, you might say, it's different this time. I'm interviewing him. He has made a big difference to my music making journey by hearing his methods and music making process have opened a lot of doors for me, allowing me to discover a lot of my own things. Pivotal point in my music making process, perhaps. So it will be really interesting to hear where he's coming from musically, what inspires him, what are the methods that he's using, and where is he looking to go next. What we have been hearing here in the background in the meantime, or even seeing if you're watching this on YouTube, is his track Corfe Castle. I'm not sure how to say that. Anyway, there will be a link in the description if you want to watch and hear the whole thing. But I'm going to shut up now and you can listen for just a few seconds to just get a bit more of a glimpse before the interview starts. Thank you very much and enjoy the interview. Bye. Ned Rush, thank you for being here. It's almost you don't need any further introduction because you are already world famous, aren't you?
I don't know about famous. Maybe infamous.
Maybe. We're going to dig into that today in the chat. I was looking back at your videos that you've made, just trying to work out like when did I come across you in the first place? It must have been about 5 or 6 years ago where you were picking apart beats. When I was searching for it, there was so little information about not doing dubstep or deep house. I mean, there was that, like, if you wanted some form of music tutorials or learning some new things, that was just like the majority was just that. So it was just such a refreshing thing to find because there was hardly any information out there. But I understand that, you know, like 5 or 6 years ago, you started posting videos way further back than that, right?
Yes, but 2009.
2009, wow.
So back in the Wild West days of YouTube. But those ones they've still got the same views that they hadn't, for whatever, 15 years ago, 13 years ago.
So are they on the similar theme, like music production?
Yeah. And sound design and just sort of just weird ways of doing things like, look what happens if you do this. Isn't that fun? I suppose.
If we would rewind even further, like how did you get into that and actually understanding how to start doing these things? How did you start working it out? Like where did your musical making journey start?
Well, how far back do you want to go? I mean, if you mean just with computers,
maybe we can have a potted history. Like if you go as far back as you want.
Well, in the 80s, I had 2 older sisters. So all of my sort of music awareness was sort of diluted through theirs. And also it was the decade of home taping. So my next oldest sister was mad for home taping. And so me and her would make these like stupid tapes together. And then she had this like really cool, I know we've been talking a lot about tape decks. She had this like a kind of karaoke, 80s karaoke Hitachi kind of all-in-one unit that you could plug mics into and record from one tape to the other with the microphone. So we just used to I was like 9 years old and she was maybe 16 or something. And I just used to think it was funny. And then she would go out and then I would sneak in and like mess around with it and like get the mic and like put it to the speaker so it would feed back and like, you know, kind of hammer all the buttons and then sort of do weird edits of things. Like Queen songs, I would like edit Queen songs from one tape to the other, and I just used to think it was stupid. And then in the 90s, I got into playing guitar and played in bands, and then at the end of that, I started to just get really interested in computers. So the early days were a cracked version of Cool Edit and probably a copy of Fruity Loops off Computer Music Magazine, and ripping stuff from CDs that I had for samples, and just sort of screwing around with them in Cool Edit, like stretching them or putting effects on them and then putting them into Fruity Loops and trying to make beats out of it.
Did you have like influences where you felt like, gosh, I would like to sound like whatever, or was this completely separate from any influence?
No, it was probably Aphex Twin.
Yeah, there we go.
Probably straight up Aphex Twin. But his more kind of like aggressive stuff rather than his ambient stuff, which I like as well. But I kind of like him when he's being a little bit vicious. And Square Pusher as well. Around about that time, sort of 99 to 2004, there was like so much exciting stuff in sort of around Warp and the associated sort of, spaces or whatever.
Where were you based at that time? Were you in London at all, or were you elsewhere in the UK?
No, in Winchester.
Winchester.
Yeah.
So was there a bit of a scene there in terms of not necessarily artists, but like were you friends into this sort of stuff?
Yeah, there was a free party scene. So I had some friends. A friend of mine who sadly passed away now. He bought. He was like maybe a handful of years younger than me, so he must have been about 19 or 20 or something. But he bought like a big Mackie like sound system and was like, "We're going to do raves," and he would kind of like rope us into it. Me and some other friends, we were all kind of like either DJing or in bands or making stuff. And he would be kind of like, if you come and help, like you can play, so, and we would do these like, illegal raves in various parts of Hampshire and stuff like that. And I remember there was like a summer when there was practically one every week or every other week. So yeah, there was a bit of the free party scene for me in those days.
And you played live, or did you DJ?
Both sometimes. I mean, largely it would just be, I would just rock up with a CD player and a Chaos pad and just kind of like use the Chaos pad to make weird noises whilst I was queuing up the next track on the CD. Or sometimes I played vinyl, as like you used to like playing vinyl. But we also had like a band. We had this kind of like psychedelic prog band that we would sometimes play at these free raves, sometimes at like 4 a.m. And then, and then 6 a.m, we'd all have to dash to pack it all away before the police came and stuff like that. So I wasn't involved in much going on in London, but I had some friends who were living there, who were coming back and forth. And I would go sometimes. I was aware of the stuff that was going on, but I never went really.
So where was it your friends who like introduced you to like music, Aphex Twin and stuff like that? Or were there sort of radio stations, or where did you hear it? Or these parties, I suppose?
Yeah, a bit of that, and just a bit of friends just saying, have you heard this? And I think because a bunch of us were sort of a similar age, we were kind of discovering stuff like this together and, buying records and getting together and listening to each other's records that they bought and stuff like that. So yeah, there was only a small group of us. It's not a very big town. Winchester's quite small. So yeah, there was just a lot of us sort of just sharing around things that we'd heard that were all kind of offshoots of maybe. There was also, I was also really into like that kind of 90s jungle thing, which I think maybe was starting to sort of phase out around that time. And it was kind of turning into the more kind of IDM-y stuff like Square Pusher and like the stuff you might get on Planet Mu or whatever. That was more listening jungle, I suppose. So yeah, it was just a little kind of group of friends just being excited about it. And we were all just sort of having a go, really.
So what happened in between the early 2000s, you messing about with some software, playing at these raves, till 2009?
Well, I was working in like just crap jobs, and I would put on a lot of nights, and was involved with people who were putting on a lot of nights around the Hampshire area, which were, pretty broad, but I was kind of concerned with people like producers doing stuff with electronics, with laptops or whatever that they wanted. And so, yeah, I kind of got really into the idea of being an event organizer, an event curator, promoting it and, liaising with acts and, trying to keep on top of things throughout the night, technically, and all that sort of stuff. It was just kind of a hobby. And then I went to university. I think I was quite late. It's about 27. And everyone there was, dubstep was the thing back then, particularly Burial. These were the years of Burial. But I was more interested in going to uni and reading about things like Stockhausen and, with like Steve Reich and Music Concrete and all that sort of stuff. So I was kind of not really involved in any of that.
But that was music university?
Yeah, I did a degree in electronic music. And round about the time was when I started noticing people. I'd love to go and find the video that I saw. I can't remember who or if it's even still there, but there was a guy and he sounded like he was in a library or something, like a public library, just talking into his laptop, and he was using Reason and just talking about what he was doing. And I was like, this is so interesting. I'm so relaxed watching this. And I was like, I want to do this. And also it kind of factored in with using the screen recording as a way to kind of get out of writing essays on my degree, because I would have to do projects and they would be like, you need to write an essay about what you've done. And I was like, can't I just shoot the desktop? And they were like, well, all right. And then, they accept it. And now from what I hear, that's actually quite a standard thing now. That's in some degrees, they actually ask you to do that. So that was when I just sort of started doing it and just found it kind of, I don't know. I don't really know what it was. There was just something sort of relaxing about just annotating one's own work, I suppose. I don't know.
But did you actually do then already, like in when you were studying, did you do the experimental stuff? Were there other expectations that because of the curriculum you had to do a particular thing, or could you do your Aphex Twin square pusher?
Oh yeah, I was still just doing all that sort of stuff, and on the course, actually, I mean, what I ended up doing on my course, I think my dissertation was kind of about the kind of the comparisons between the sort of more traditional rockist idea of what an authentic performance is versus more modern kind of ideas of what an authentic performance is with electronic music, and sort of trying to find the parallels or something along those lines. And also just talking a lot about kind of glitch as an aesthetic, the value that it has. So yeah, and just interested in, and just pretty much just talked a lot about Ableton Live and how, it's possible now to improvise with electronics. Perhaps it always has been, but at the time I was like, I think we've reached that point now where you can actually rock up with some technology and improvise in very much the same way that you would if you were in a band. So those barriers or boundary, whatever, the difference between the two ideas of what an authentic performance is from the rockist point of view to this kind of modern, cold, electronic, it's not real music type of thing. They're kind of gone now. I don't really think anyone sees that anymore now that we're in 2023. I think people just accept that if you rock up with a load of boxes, then you're going to do an authentic performance. So it was kind of really, I was just prattling on about authenticity in rock journalism. That's really what my dissertation was, I think, if I remember right.
So, because when I found your channel, I realized like how you were working in ways that I'd really seen anyone do. I'd heard the results elsewhere, like, listening to Square Push or whatever, but it felt like it's quite an opaque process. But you were doing it and you were sharing how you achieved those things. But were there other people around you where you were collaborating and learning from one another? Or were you just like, you were the one doing this in your area and you were sort of quite isolated, or or was it more than you?
I don't know. I mean, I was always one to. I did have like a flatmate. I've had like flatmates who were into all this sort of stuff, and we would always kind of do that thing of like, hey, look, I've just found out you can do this thing, you know, and we would go like, yeah, that's that thing, that's it, that's the thing, you know, that's the thing that we're like, what is that thing? That's it, and I was sort of, I was kind of like one of those people that would sort of just get, if I stumbled upon something or learned something, I would get quite excited and I would be like, hey guys, look, this is how you do the thing, and so I guess it's just sort of a little bit in my personality to kind of get excited because there's a sort of, there was up until that point, maybe this sort of mystery around it all. And so to sort of like kind of have this realization that, oh, actually, it's not really that mysterious. And it's actually kind of quite a basic concept. It's just not immediately obvious. I guess that was something that kind of was a good handle for doing these types of videos, which is to kind of maybe go, hey, like, this isn't actually that tricky. You just do this. Or, hey, look what happens if you plug this in the wrong way. This happens. Doesn't that sound cool? You know, sample that and use it. Rather than kind of being kind of like, this is how you use a compressor and this is the only way. And if you know this, then you'll be a pro and you'll win 10 Grammys, you know, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, not as fun.
Well, I mean, it's just not, I'm not interested. Not interested in that.
You'd say that that's where your energy comes from. When you hear a lot of musicians talk about the reason why they're making music, you know, maybe a singer-songwriter would say like they got a story that they want to tell, for example. But is that where you're coming from, where this like, what happens if I do that? Is that your sort of like, what if I just plug this in backwards? Is that where the sort of curiosity and your drive for making music comes from, you think?
But some of it, yeah. You know, we were talking the other day about this reverb unit that I've bought, that I've patched into the mixer, that I've been making weird feedback loops with. And it was something that I've thought about doing for a long time. It was something that I used to do in Reason quite a lot, because Reason's really good for that. You can really wire everything up how you want. So like, when I kind of understood a little bit how feedback loops work, that became something that I was always interested in, and to sort of do it digitally, of like plugging in a reverb, like kind of back into itself and feeding it back and switching all the settings so they make all these weird noises, was always something I thought was kind of fun. Now I'm kind of like, fast forward 10 years and I'm doing it now with like a real one. So it's kind of like, for me, that's quite gratifying, because it's like, oh, this doesn't have to be a virtual thing anymore. This is like, so it's still the same. I've forgotten the question. Sorry.
No, it was literally like where when you are making music, like what's the sort of reason, driving force behind it?
Yes, I think that, I suppose, I mean, it's always nice to discover things, to discover new things when I'm not really one to repeat myself in terms of the process. If I make like a track or an album and I make it a certain way, then I'm unlikely to immediately revisit that. I'm more likely to go, right, I need to find a different way. Even though I might be making the same song again, it's a completely different way. So it really, the motivation for me is sort of like discovering things and realizing that they could be really useful for coming up with ideas. Like I might stumble upon something and I might be like, wow, I could make loads of tracks like this, like really quickly. So that's certainly a motivation, is just discovering new things, particularly with old stuff or just stuff that you've had. I've been using Ableton for like 20 years and I'm still finding things that are like, oh my God, this is so, wow, ideas.
Sometimes even in plain sight, right? You know, things like, yes, you know that that's there and you've tried it, but you haven't really used it in the right context, perhaps. And all of a sudden it just comes to life.
Yeah, even like, I'm going to do this in a video, but like I was screwing around with the auto filter and I was like, what is this quantization thing? I don't think I've ever even turned that on. And I turned it on and I didn't really understand what it was doing. And I looked at the little help file and it was like, oh, it updates the filter according to the setting. So I was like, oh, right. So I turned it on and started moving the frequency and the resonance, and it updates those values on the beat. And I never knew that. And I was like, wow, that's like, I just didn't know. So it's kind of that sort of I guess it's that connection between sort of discovering something that maybe you didn't know that was there, as you say, in plain sight, and then thinking, what could I do with that? Like right now. And I suppose maybe that's a little bit of that enthusiasm that I try to put into my delivery on YouTube. It's like, you can do this now.
Yeah. How do you feel like you have developed since the 2009 first video till present day? Like, what would you say how have your process changed, or your perception of music, perhaps?
My perception of music, I don't know.
Or appreciation. I don't know. Maybe talk more about that. Like, how do you feel you have developed since then, just in any form? Production.
Well, I mean, I would say that there's a lot of core concepts to do with sound and digital sound signal processing that I'm, like aware of now. Certain types of synthesis, certain ways of doing sound design that are like, I know, because it's kind of a science, and it's sort of a science in the sense that it's not really something that's developed or moved on. There's only so many ways that you can make a kick drum sound, and it's kind of the same way across whatever piece of equipment that you use. Whereas 10 years ago, I might not have had the first idea. I would just be like, just give me a kick drum sample. But now it's like, if you said to me, make a kick drum, I could do it, because I've just sort of learnt, I guess, some of the fundamental core concepts of how sound works. So I guess I've just gotten more the brainy scientist and less the punk.
I remember you were saying about, like, we spoke a while back, or if it was on Discord, I can't remember, but you were talking about samples. I know that you're using loads of break beats, and well, I know you recorded some yourself, but also some of the classic ones like the Amen, etc. But otherwise, do you make your own sounds?
Yes. And no, it depends. Like, an album I did a couple of years ago, it was pretty much, it's all me playing all the instruments. So even though that they're very, sort of meticulously edited, particularly the drums, they all started with me. The guitars, the basses, all the keyboard stuff, all the sort of special effects. Yeah, they're all kind of, I made them, And then a year later, I did an album of just, old TV themes with breakbeats over it. I didn't make any of those sounds at all. So it kind of depends, really.
What gems are in there? What TV themes could we expect if we listen to that?
The theme tune to Are You Being Served? Classic 70s camp British comedy. What else? Airwolf. Some of them are mashed up that you can't tell it's them anymore. The theme tune to Minder. All stuff from my childhood. Yeah. But that was kind of because the chap who asked me to make the album only gave me 3 weeks. And I was like, I don't have time. So I was just like, I'll just sample some TV themes. That'll do. And I had a good time.
So yeah, it would be interesting to hear about, like, so you've released some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me.
Yeah.
What's your release history?
Well, the most recent thing I did was the tape for Expert Sleepers, which was I can't remember. Yeah, it was an hour. It was 2 30-minute sides, all made on modular. Like one takes recorded straight from the modular and just into Ableton. And then before that was the breakcore record with Acid Chicken over in Hong Kong, which was the one with all the TV themes on it. And then before that was Mode 2, which was a self-release, which was a sequel to Mode 1, which was another... Oh, no, not a self-release. That was on a label in Southampton. But that was going back. That's like 2015 or 16, I think. A couple of other things along the way. Lots of stuff on Bandcamp that I've just put out myself. And then before 2010, it was probably just putting things on MySpace and just printing CDRs and giving them to friends, So nothing on any... big labels. Although the Expert Sleepers label is coming along quite nicely from what I see. They're putting out stuff a lot, quite regularly.
Interesting to you. How did that connection come about, Expert Sleepers?
I think he just asked me.
And did he find your YouTube channel and then reached out to you? Because he must have seen you using the disting, I assume, because you use disting to a level that I haven't really seen anyone else do.
I bought some distings. I think they're really good, and I've got 3 of them, and I've got a super disting. And I wanted to do some YouTube videos about modular, but I was really sort of struggling to come up with ideas because it's such a vast like framework in terms of what you can do that it sort of seemed difficult to sort of pick interesting, relevant topics that weren't just native to the whatever trending module was out at the moment, you know. And so I was like, well, the distings have got every module possible really in one module. So if I wanted to do something about this is how sample and hold works, then I can use those. And rather than just kind of like going like, hey, I've just bought an herb verb, you know, and making noises with it, and then that's it. So yeah, I did some videos with the disting, and I guess he must have seen them, and then he just wrote me an email and said, do you want to do a tape? And then I didn't for about a year, maybe it was 2 years. And then I asked him if he was still up for it, and he said, yeah. So very laid back arrangement. I would happily do another one if he's watching.
Interesting. Yeah, I tried the disting because I think I got really inspired by your videos, but I was just like, gosh, I'm overwhelmed. I'll have to let this one go. What about, have you done any other collaborations or other people who've reached out to you? I know you've associated with Isotonic Studios. You've done some stuff for them.
Yeah, well, Darren puts out all my Max for Live stuff. And that's been going, we've been doing that for maybe 10 years now, actually. That's been an ongoing thing. And yeah, I'll keep giving him stuff as and when I work on it. I'm working on an album right now with Stephen, who does Safro over in LA. We've been working remotely on a record for about a year, but mainly in the last 6 months, quite heavily in the last 6 months. And that's very, very nearly finished. But I won't say much more than that. I'll wait until it's finished before I start picking it up.
And that's going to be, do you have a label or anything to release that on? Or?
We don't know yet. We're going to see what we can do. So, but yeah, I won't say much more.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's in the works.
So what's happening next for you? What are your future plans for the channel or for your music?
Well, I don't know really. Finish this record. I just keep ticking along, I suppose. Just keep trying to make more YouTube stuff. Maybe I'd like to do a more Kicks Than Friends in real life at some point, and maybe an online one as well. Because that's sort of a brand that we built up that I'm a little reluctant to let go of so quickly after it happened. And I would like to develop that into something where, you know, people can come to a space and watch some interesting performances in the real world. So
was that a pandemic thing? That's when it started, right? Is that right?
It was the pandemic, yeah. So I did 20 episodes in 2020. Not on purpose, but now I think about it, that's kind of strange. 20 episodes in 2020 of More Kicks Than Friends every Saturday for 20 weeks. And then I sort of stopped it because it became quite a lot of work. And also the pandemic was the lockdown, should we say, was starting to teeter off. And I was like, I'm not going to go on the internet and beg people to stay in to watch this, you know.
If there is someone watching who don't know what More Kicks Than Friends is, how would you sort of sum it up? Just describe what that is.
Well, it was kind of a music TV show / mini festival. So I kind of wanted it to be like you were going to a night out or going to like a day festival where there would be one act and then another act and another act. And then it's me kind of in between enjoying a few too many drinks and rambling into the mic and sometimes talking to the artists as well. And I suppose it was kind of, someone said it was kind of like the Jules Holland for electronica. but without a boogie woogie around the piano. So, but like, so yeah, it was kind of like a sort of it, and all the, a lot of the performances were all live. Like a lot of people had shot these things at home with cameras or whatever, and so they were proper performances, albeit that they had recorded them and then sent them to me, and I would broadcast them. But I kind of wanted it to be like a kind of a night out at a gig or something with everyone sat at home. But now I'd like to do one in real life, because I've got a bit of a background in putting on events and stuff when I was in my 20s, and it's lots of fun.
Needs to happen again.
Yeah.
So you said ticking along, but then on that, like thinking about most of your videos are revolving around Ableton, but also perhaps more recently, it's like more and more Max for Live stuff. We're going to get onto the Max for Live stuff in a moment, but looking at Ableton now, it feels like you have, even though you're still discovering things, the majority you've probably, looked at, so to say. What would you say, if anyone from Ableton is watching now, what would you like to see in a future Ableton release? Is there something that you think you could do better, or that you feel like, oh, why can't I do this?
There's a couple of things maybe in the... I don't think about this that much. There's because I'm happy with the way it is. I think maybe to make the session view a little bit more like an actual mixer could be something. But then whenever I think about it, I'm like, I don't know how they would even implement that. I know that there's...
Yeah, go on. No, you need to finish.
I was going to say, I know that there's a secret thing in the text file where if you change some text in the config text file, it will reveal another panel which will show you all the effects that are in that current track. So you can click on them and then very quickly they appear in the thing down below. I'll be honest, I don't always like Ableton for mixing, really coming to the end of the mix, the final mix. I think, but then I don't think what they could do to really improve that. I was thinking that maybe like it would be nice to have like the device panel on one pane, and then above that the MIDI or the audio clip panel. To have those in one view would be like really nice. Like to be able to sequence in the piano roll and adjust the instrument without having to toggle from one to the other. Although I know that you can do like, there's a tab, I think there's a shift tab or something that will tab you around, but just to have them both there in the screen would be quite nice. There's not really anything else I can think of, really.
I have to admit, I would love if you could record, if you're using Max for Live devices and you are doing loads of automation, if you could actually record that automation.
What, from Max for Live device? Oh, what if you're using a Max for Live device to
modulate something,
like map stuff?
Yeah,
that could be good. I do have a bit of a workaround for that, and that is that you actually make the LFO in Max as a standalone Max patch, and then route the MIDI in as a control surface in Ableton, and then you can use an LFO from Max to, and then it will record the automation. That was something I was going to do in a video. I've just given it away.
Yeah, I've been thinking about doing something which is just acting as a, if you use all the existing Max for Live devices, but if you did a Max for Live device, so you take the LFO that's already existing, you have a device with just a dial on it, but that just creates an artificial, is that what you were saying, like an artificial MIDI device? Because then you could use expression control or the LFO or the envelope follower or whatever you want to do. So you're basically using whatever you're using to modulate a dummy device that then just sends it back in as MIDI to modulate the thing that you actually want to modulate, whether that is the filter or whatever it is.
Yeah, those types of things are possible. I did do a video a while ago where I was using Ableton as a MIDI controller for itself by sending out like a piece of automation, let's say like on the mod wheel, sending that out to the AAC driver, or I can't remember, the virtual Mac MIDI driver that you can create on Mac.
Yeah.
And then routing it back in as a sort of mappable CC. So you would trigger a clip, it would send out this waveform on the mod wheel and then route it back in to control the panning or something. It's not something I would ever recommend anyone doing. It's a real faff, but I just did it just to try and look cool and like, hey, it's that thing of like, hey, look, you can do this. Look what happens if you do this, but it's not necessarily a good idea.
so I wish I could do that, because one of the things so if you're using a sequencer in Max for Live, you can obviously create another track, record into that track to get your sequence out, and then you can just ditch the sequencer and put your new track in. It's a little bit of extra faff, but then also you can go in and manually just fix little things that have not quite turned out right, which is difficult to do when you're doing automation, because, you just got the take and then you just have to record it again, and hopefully whatever that is that you just don't get.
Yeah, there are like little workarounds. But yeah, I think that there are some instruments and some devices I would certainly like. Like I'd certainly really like a genuine like granular synth, an Ableton granular synth. That's not kind of like a Max for Live one that they've just made available or for free or something, like a one that's really in the infrastructure of Ableton, and along with some other things, like actually maybe some genuinely good, like a proper drum machine with like synthesizer engines in it, not the Max for Live ones. And I think maybe it might happen because some of these newer things that they brought out in 11, these more kind of like spectral things, like the spectral delay and the spectral resonator and all this sort of stuff, I'm fairly certain that they're kind of maybe official versions of Max for Live devices I've seen in the past. So I wonder if maybe there's some potential there for them to take some ideas from that community and go, yeah, we're going to make a proper device like this. So maybe like some new devices, or maybe more. They also, updated a few in Live 11, changed the delay, changed the flanger and all that sort of stuff. Maybe they could do a few more updates, like an updated beat repeat, just, but I don't know. Otherwise, I think it's all right as it is.
You're not sort of longing. I remember hearing other artists saying like, oh, Bitwig is the new thing. I had a little go, but I wasn't really taken by it. But you haven't sort of thought about using any other DAWs, or do you use other DAWs then? You use Reason, don't you?
Yeah, well, I've got Reason 12 now. So I will be like looking into that and doing videos about that in this year. I just need to remember how to use it because it's been a long time. But that's got some really great stuff in it now, some really great instruments. And the mixer is like really good. Otherwise I don't really, I'm pretty much just Ableton and Max really for my adventures.
All right, let's talk about Max. I find the learning curve learning Max has been steep. Like I've reached a level where I can start making some things, but it was something that every now and again, I sort of attacked it and was like, I want to get my head around it, but it was just felt very impenetrable, but eventually, like you get there. But what's your Max story? How long have you been doing it for, and how did you get started?
Well, I started when they released Max for Live. That was when I was like, okay, I'm going to get it and I'm going to learn it. Before then, I'd really only tried the demo for maybe 5 minutes. And just, if you download Max or PD or something and you open it up, it's just a blank white square. There's just nothing. There's no hand holding at all, at least on the first glance. So I was like, I've got no idea. It's very different to Reactor, where if you load Reactor, there's sort of like a library of things that you can open up and explore. But actually, funnily enough, I played around with Reactor for a while and I found that curve much harder. And actually, Max, I think, has some of the best documentation I've seen in any software. You just got to kind of know where it is. It's kind of tucked away. So, if you're ever in Max and you've loaded up an object, if you press Alt and click the object, it'll open up the help file. And you can unlock that and copy paste that into your own patch. And that was kind of how I learned it, really, was just that. And sometimes if I got stuck asking questions and then like trying to sort of understand why that solution works, I think was kind of important. It's like, why does that work? Rather than just kind of going, okay, that'll do. It does what I want. I was quite like, no, I need to know why this works.
So you just like hammering away. You didn't do any courses or anything. You literally like, I'm just going to get my head around this.
No, I just watched YouTube and used the help file system and would go on the forum quite a lot. And, you know, it's a very friendly forum. The Facebook Max group is really fast. They're really quick to reply. And yeah, so I appreciate that. I mean, it was certainly years and years. I'd say it was about a year when I like made my first delay. And now it's kind of like, now it's sort of 15 years on, and I'm fairly confident at being able to realize ideas that I might have. But there's still a huge amount of stuff I don't know or understand. It's just such a vast environment, you know. Yeah, I don't think I reckon people have been using it for 30. In fact, I think it might be 30 years old, 35 years old. I'm sure that it does have some origins in the mid to late 80s. And I wouldn't be surprised if people who've been using it that long still don't know how all of it works. So
yeah, it's pretty mysterious. So you said about 15 years you have been sort of playing around with it to a degree. Is that right? 15 years?
No, sorry. That was probably actually thinking about it. I can't remember when it came out. I think it came out roughly maybe 2009, 2010. And then it was a couple of years later that I thought, right, I'm going to get it because I want the idea of being able to build your own things and have them running in Ableton was like, I've got to do that.
How long did it take before, you know, when you sit there and you have the blank square and you have like, I have no idea what's going on here, till you actually started feeling excited, like, yes, I want to build this thing. Like, are you more excited about it now than you were like a year ago? Or does the excitement go up and up still?
It still goes up and up. Yeah. Like again, it's that sort of thing of like discovering that there's something that you can do with what you have right in front of you is, that's certainly enough to get me motivated to start on and finish something, you know. I don't know how long it might take, but, you know, there are a couple of things that in Max that I'm interested in, putting together right now. I was thinking that maybe I'd quite like to try and make like a full DAW in it, like maybe live stream it like as kind of like a sort of weird course of like, watch me try and do this and see if and I don't mean obviously like a DAW in the sense that you'll be able to do multi-track editing or, you know, stuff like that, but to make like a kind of full bespoke environment that I could make full pieces of music in. And doing it in a modular fashion of like, I'll make my transport, I'll make a sequencer, then I'll make modules to be triggered by that sequencer, I'll make effects, and then I need to make like a sequencer for all the sequences so I can make songs. I've sort of been thinking about that for the last few months. And maybe I'll do that quite soon. Maybe it'll be like a Friday night live stream thing or something.
Gosh, you're going to do it all in one Friday night? No, you make it.
No,
that would be impressive.
Or maybe one Friday night, but I just won't stop, and I'll still be live streaming after 2 weeks, and I'll be getting letters like, "Mate, drink some water, go to bed."
So, what's musically inspiring you now? We talked about like in the 90s. You said like, you know, the jungle thing moved into more the square pusher and that sort of stuff. What about now? What do you listen to?
Well, I quite like listening to your stuff, actually. I quite like listening to all the stuff that we all, you know, our little crew has all started, you know, chatting to each other, and we all follow each other. I enjoy that stuff. There's not, I don't know if there's a huge amount of sort of specific artists. There's like, I quite like the Black Noise podcast.
I don't know that one.
Got stuff on there that's really interesting. There's very glitchy IDM stuff. I really like Raj on NTS Radio. He plays like, I'll see if I'll send you links. Like he's playing like cool sort of beats that are kind of, they're a little bit in the grime footwork, but then he'll speed it up and then it'll go into the breaks and the breakcore in the jungle and all that sort of stuff. I don't know who any of the people are that he's DJing, but they sound cool. So there's a couple of outlets, let's say, that I like to check out.
If you can send me a few links, I'll put them in the description so people can check them out. And
but mostly a lot of podcasts, internet radio, and DJs and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, and Radio 3, quite like Radio 3 sometimes. It's quite good.
What about? Is there any gear that you're dreaming of? Any equipment that you want to try or have or own, or are you quite disciplined when it comes to that sort of thing? Maybe. Tell the truth.
I might buy an Electron Analog 4 soon. I think I want one.
You are really on the Electron bandwagon, aren't you?
I've only got 2 units. I've had, but this will be my third. I had a Digitone and then I sold it. But I've got 2 now. I've got an Octatrack and a Rhythm. The Rhythm I bought about a year ago, but then I didn't really do anything with it. But the last sort of month, I've been trying to really get into it. And it's sort of that Electron are really irritating because they kind of have this weird sort of like crack inside their stuff where it's kind of like, now I have to get that one as well. Now I have to get that one. It's like this weird sort of, they're like, it's like modular, but in standalone boxes, it's like when you realize what they're capable of, you're a bit like, oh, now I need to get that one.
So how, the only experience I have with using Electron stuff, I got an old machine drum that can be seen sort of.
Oh, wow.
There. And I bought that when it was new.
Oh, wow.
But every time I try to use, every time I switch it on, I somehow just need to relearn it. It doesn't come naturally to me. Like the modular, I can just get going, but I always sort of stumble on the machine drum. I suppose that was maybe the first sort of, with parameter locking. Is that their earliest device?
I think, they must have done, they did the SID station.
Yes.
Which was using the
SID chip from the Commodore 64.
Yeah, and that was probably in the early 2000s, wasn't it?
Yeah, even maybe late 90s. But I don't think that doesn't have the sequencer and that stuff in it. I think
no, it's just a synth. I think.
Yeah, it's just a synth. Yeah, but this one was the first, the sort of Electron workflow or whatever we should call it. And then I also currently have, but it's that close to go on sale, which is the Model Cycles, which sounds great. I mean, it's the super light version, I suppose, of the Digitact, or is it it's the FM percussive?
I would imagine that's kind of like a stripped back version of the Digitone, which is FM synth. Yeah.
I decided to. Well, I'm close to making the decision of getting rid of it since I saw the software developer for Model Cycles. I don't know. Have you looked at? I'm going to say it in the Swedish way. Fors, Fors Opal, which is a Max for Live device.
Oh yes, I've seen the name floated about.
Yeah. So I decided,
because he was that used to work for Electron.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So he did the development. So there are a lot of similarities between the Model Cycles and that. And I would say the Model Cycle's fun and it sounds nice, but I would say my complaint is maybe it sounds too much like software. So for me, I'm going to save a lot of money and space by just using that one. And I'm quite happy to use his software version, which is built in Max for Live and sounds great.
But, I really should have a look at that. I'd be interested to see what's going on inside.
Yes, pulling it apart, because if that feels almost like a little DAW in itself. It's not like you can't route it like you were saying, but it's got the sort of sequencers and different instruments, and you can sort of build whole tracks in it. So maybe it's something worth looking into. So with the Electron stuff, did you buy an Octatrack and just learned it? People are saying it's almost like Ableton in a box. Is that a fair thing to say?
In some ways. maybe not so much. I would say I've got a Roland MC707 as well, which I also haven't turned on for a while. I would say that that's more like Ableton in a box because it has this kind of grid session, like scene-based type of thing. And it's all kind of clips, and each clip can be a different synth preset on that track. So you can completely switch the synth engine setting by just moving to the next scene, and you can trigger like whole scenes across the 8 tracks. But yeah, I really, really lusted after Electron stuff for a long, long time. But it was kind of that thing. I just spent years and years and years thinking like, what am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with it? Like it looks good. And
so what's the crack? What's the crack? As in like, what's in there that makes it like, wow, I love this and I need more?
Well, I think there are some cracks I've not got yet. I've had the Octatrack for maybe 5 years.
You love it,
and I do, but like I haven't made a single thing on it. I haven't done any of the things that I plan to do. The idea is that like it would be amazing to just have a single box where I can rock up at a show and do whatever I want with it, and it's very much aligned with what I want to do. And I still haven't done it because I just get distracted by my computer. And but I was sort of playing around on the analog rhythm this last week. And it's kind of like, I have this thing with Electron where it's like, if I sit down and try to put the hours into getting it to do what I think I want it to do, I get kind of frustrated. And then I think I'm going to throw this thing out the window if it doesn't start doing what I want soon. And then I sort of take a break, and then I just kind of explore it without really thinking. And I just get lost. And it's like, I'll just get lost. Yeah, just lost in like a trance just with one pattern because of just the amount of possibilities that there are with that sequencer in conjunction with whichever type of engine you're using. And so it kind of just got me thinking, gosh, if I can do this stuff on the rhythm, I wonder what it's like on the analog 4 with 4. I don't quite understand the voices. I think it's 4 synth voices, separate voices, but you can do polyphony on it, but they can also be like 4 separate single mono voices. And, just like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It also comes out sounding a bit like 90s Auteca, I'll be honest.
And what about, why was there no crack in the Digitone?
Oh, no, I liked the Digitone very much, but I was kind of like, this is kind of just Operator. I've got Operator in Ableton. It's very, very, very much the same, other than the sequencer. But, there are ways that I can achieve those types of things in Ableton without an Electron sequencer. And also I kind of thought that like, having the Octatrack, which is also an 8-track MIDI sequencer, aside from the sampler, is not something to look down the nose at. And I haven't even begun to explore using it as just a MIDI sequencer for other stuff, maybe even for the computer, to sequence the computer. So, but I'm very sort of slow to just get into hardware. That's kind of a problem.
Yeah, looking forward to see you doing some stuff with it. Do you think you will give in and getting the analog 4?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the analog 4 and the analog rhythm are like, they're made for each other as far as I'm concerned. And I don't even know that yet. I'm just certain. I have this belief system that they are the perfect match. I would almost say to the point where you don't need modular anymore, really. Like everything's there. Everything you could possibly want to do. And then stick an Octatrack on the end to sample it all as well.
You're done. Do you somehow in your head tell yourself like, if you only have these 3 things, you're not going to need anything ever again? And then after a while, you almost sort of just like, yeah, I'm going to do it.
Well, like, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I've had the Octatrack a long time, but I've still got it. It's not. Hardware has come and gone with me quite a lot. Like I've gotten stuff where I've gone like, you know what, I'm not going to get much more out of this. I've got everything I need. It can go. And, I just get this feeling with the Octatrack that I haven't even scratched the surface, even though I think I know it nearly inside out. I don't think I've scratched the surface of what it's capable of. And that's kind of why that's kind of a problem in itself as well, because like, rather than sort of thinking, okay, it can do that, I should just make it do that and be done with it. I'm always like, yeah, but there's always more. There's always more that it can do. There's always more stuff to discover. And in some ways, that kind of sort of ongoing enthusiasm to just discover things in technologies is kind of sometimes holds me back from actually doing anything. Actually making a commitment to go, right, I'm going to make some music now. It's like, but there's so much more I need to know.
Yeah. I suppose it's that, like, have you heard of the Myers-Briggs test? It's some sort of personality test. And I think one of them is, like, that is the trait. Like, there's more to discover. Like, you're not the person who's going to then sit down and do the whole project, as in finishing it. Like, you want to be there at the discovery phase.
Yeah. And I suppose
I'm totally like that.
Yeah, no, I know I am. And like, I actually, from working with Stephen over the past year, I've sort of realized that actually that's absolutely one of the benefits of having someone else there that you're working with, because sometimes you just need someone there to go, stop doing that and just do that. That's it. That's fine. Do that. That's fine. Whereas if it's kind of just me left to myself, I'm a little bit like, well, there's no one around to tell me not to do this. I'm going to do it. So, that's kind of one of the benefits of working collaboratively with other people, is that you can have someone there to say, hey, that sounds great. Record that. Let's do something with that. Even though you might be thinking, no, I'm not done. It's like, yeah, no, I've decided you're done. Record it now. Let's make a song. So, yeah, I don't know. That's one of the curses of working alone, I suppose.
Yeah,
is that lack of sort of
deadline. Yeah, someone to deliver to as well. I mean, I find that anyway. If there's an expectation and a date, I do deliver, but otherwise, it's just going to sprawl for me.
Yeah, it's just tinkering.
Yeah,
but I enjoy it. It brings me joy.
Oh, good. Okay, we need to give some tips. I feel if you would want to recommend something to the people watching, something to listen to. It could be maybe one of the artists that you say, like, in our little crew, and says, like, check this particular artist out, or it doesn't have to be. It could be Square Pusher if you want to. What would you say? Like, give us a, like, is it a particular track or an artist that you would like to recommend?
I really, he hasn't put an album out for a while, but I really like this guy called John, but it's not spelt John like John. It's spelt very strangely. And I will try and, it's spelt like sort of pseudo phonetically. He does this really, really good like drum and bass that's like very dark and very slick and cold, a little bit kind of like what Photech was a bit like in the late 90s, like very sort of dark drum and bass, but very sort of clean and slick.
Technical beats.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all breaks, but like there's that nice sort of balance between them sounding very like human but just sort of glitched a little bit now and then, just to sort of remind you that it's not a human, but it could be if you, and just really dark, atmospheric sort of like, and he's playing in London in April. I really want to go. Oh, here we go. I found it on my thing. It's spelled like DGOHN. I would show you. Yeah.
You send me the link.
You can't see it on there.
No, but send me the link and put it in the description so people can listen.
It's really good stuff.
All right. This has been super. Thank you so much for all the insights. It's been great, and looking forward to hopefully coming to the more Kicks Than Friends live, if it will happen this year. As in live.
I'm sure it will. And I'm sure you'll probably be on the bill.
We'll see.
Probably.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Cheers,
Thank
mate.
you.